Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, the breaking news, the home explosion up in flames, igniting multiple homes in the neighborhood. The images coming in, the powerful blast leveling homes, one home igniting two more, then two additional homes going up in flames. Authorities on the scene at this hour, the public being told to avoid the area. What we know so far. Also breaking as we come on tonight, the record heat fueling large wildfires across several states. Firefighters forced to chopper in to battle the fires. Millions of Americans tonight under extreme heat alerts. And in the Northeast, the major shift in the weather as the Labor Day weekend approaches. Lee Goldberg is here. Tonight, President Trump doubling down on his deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. The Guard now armed, patrolling the streets. The president suggesting Chicago is next. Outrage tonight over the 9-hour Department of Justice interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted of sex trafficking. Tonight, more of that audio, what she says about President Trump, about former President Clinton, and about claims that there is a Jeffrey Epstein client list. As the family of one of Epstein's accusers blasts the interview tonight, saying the Department of Justice is now allowing Maxwell to rewrite history. Tonight, 3 days after being released from custody, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in custody. The administration saying he will be sent to Uganda. But tonight, what the judge is now saying about this. Tonight, Israel's deadly airstrike at a hospital in Gaza. 5 journalists among at least 20 people killed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tonight calling it a tragic mishap. The countdown right now after multiple dramatic setbacks, SpaceX and the test launch set for a short time from now. In New York's Central Park, 2 separate attacks, the horrific scene, and there is news coming in on this. The stunning crash of firefighting helicopter trying to fill its bucket, the pilot losing control, plunging into the water. The major meltdown at the U.S. Open playing out with millions watching, and the new turn tonight. And the Powerball jackpot, how does 750 million sound? From ABC News World Headquarters.
Let's go!
I think normally we would not condone booing, but I feel like the audience, you may boo away for 5 seconds if you'd like to. That is to cheat on the bench press. And listen, when you and I were hanging and banging today, we're down there hey, don't get it twisted. He might be a 27-year-old virgin, but he can throw bench with the best of them. And we're down there. And you were watching that video, and you were getting pumped up, and the blood was flowing, and 24-inch pythons started coming through, and you were about to lose your mind. You were like, that's not even 45 pounds. You noticed that on each side. That looks what did you think it looked like, Joe?
That plate looked smaller than the ones I get at Golden Corral. It'll be 45 pounds. I'll say this, I'm a bodybuilder, Tyrus. I just started yesterday, but yes. I am a bodybuilder, and
they had a schedule.
Yeah, the hardest part is that people laugh when you tell them that you're a bodybuilder, but I will say this, it was an embarrassment from start to finish, because after he failed to bench press the 135 pounds, he then kicked a soccer ball at the men's festival. What's next? He's gonna pee sitting down? I don't know about that. But I do want to make the point that it's just not all bench press. When I'm at the gym, I max out on the thigh abductor machine, so much so that my nickname's actually Thigh Abductor at the gym, as well as KFC.
I'm not going to ask what the KFC stands for. I'm just going to assume it's some form of chicken. Speaking of chicken, Chef, a lot of people are missing this, and maybe I'm the only one to me, it wasn't about the bench press. As pathetic as that was, it was about judgment and not being aware. And going into a situation knowing you have no idea what you're doing and doing it anyways because you'll just wing it.
Yeah.
Now that's bench press, right? And luckily you had someone there to curl that weight off him. Is that how you're going to handle law enforcement? That's how you're going to handle immigrants? Now all of a sudden federal grocery stores make sense come from a guy who has no idea what he's doing. He just does things. And how can you lead if you actually don't have any experience in anything?
Exactly, and he didn't know what he was walking into, but that's emblematic of his entire campaign, is everybody else lifting up the weight for him while he takes the credit. that's communism right there, right? And I think that we're also missing the fact that in that video, like, that is the most world famous teabag I've ever seen in my life. The guy that's like that was really uncomfortable to watch the first 13 times I watched it, because this guy's flesh burritos are hanging down in his face. And he's just got that big old smile on his face. It's really embarrassing. But yeah, who in his PR team told him to go and do that? Just do a trial run. Do a trial run. They realize, you know what? We'll use barbells. We'll make it look a little bit bigger. No big deal. I want to back up, though, and as I mentioned, I hit on, obviously, his political platform in the beginning, but we got to realize is that this entire kind of commie, Bolshevik-style platform that he's running and campaign he's running, this is of the mentality of like a 6 to 12-year-old. And I know that because I have kids between 6 and 12 years old. It's funny, when I got on city council in Huntington Beach, they're like, Dad, you're in government now. Can you just give everybody money? Right? Like, that's the kind of young...
On this Monday night, Israel's deadly double strike on a hospital in Gaza. The journalist killed, why it's suspected to be a war crime, and the worldwide condemnation. The Prime Minister's mission to build European relationships, how defense is high on his agenda.
I think what it indicates is that the landscape has changed.
The clever and subversive rebrand of a protest movement banned in the UK.
Plastics in Action, the group. We are a peaceful organisation.
How one man is mocking a British Canada is leading the way in women's sports.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The Israeli military killed at least another 20 people in Gaza today, hitting a hospital in southern Gaza twice, a hospital that was already only partially functioning. Among the dead, healthcare workers and journalists. Israel's prime minister calls it a tragic mishap. These are the journalists killed. Hussam al-Masri worked for Reuters, Mohammed Salama for Al Jazeera, Mariam Abu Daka freelanced for the Associated Press and others, Moaz Abu Taha and Ahmed Abu Aziz were both also freelancers. Without local journalists like them, the world would not see what is happening in Gaza because Israel prevents international journalists from covering the conflict. Nearly 200 journalists have been killed in Gaza since October of 2023. Canada's Foreign Affairs Ministry told Reuters today that it is horrified by the Israeli military strike on Nasser Hospital and that such attacks are unacceptable. Targeting journalists is considered a war crime. Mike Armstrong explains what happened and why Israel's tactics are being widely condemned.
This is the...
This is DW News live from Berlin. International outrage builds after Israel strikes one of Gaza's biggest hospitals. The UN chief calls for an investigation into the strike on the Nasser hospital, which killed at least 20 people, including 5 journalists. Also on the program, Typhoon Kajiki lashes Vietnam. At least 3 people are reported dead and thousands of homes damaged as the extent of the destruction begins to emerge. And the extremist group blocking migrants from accessing healthcare in South Africa. DW reports from Johannesburg on a campaign of intimidation. This is Sky News, the headlines. Israel orders an inquiry after its forces strike the last functioning hospital in southern Gaza, killing at least 20 people. Among them, 5 journalists killed in a second strike as they rushed to the scene in what Israel's Prime Minister has called a tragic mishap. Also, 3 people are killed in a helicopter crash on the Isle of Wight during a flying lesson. Mounting pressure on the Prime Minister over the small boats crisis as MPs warn the toxic debate is spurring a rise in online abuse. Plus, more than 1 million people celebrate Europe's biggest street party at the Notting Hill Carnival. Good morning, welcome to the programme. Israel's Prime Minister says an Israeli strike on a hospital in Gaza that killed 20 people, including 5 journalists.
Nigel Farage unveils how his party would end the small boats crisis.
After GB News exclusively reveals that 900 migrants illegally crossed the channel over the bank holiday weekend.
So does Reform UK's plans of mass deportations stack up, or is Labour getting a grip on Britain's migrant crisis?
Have you noticed a hike in supermarket prices this summer? Well, you're not alone, because food inflation has peaked as families feel the pinch at the checkout.
Is Britain still equipped to roll out electric cars? We're debating that as drivers complain of wait times just to access charging points at petrol stations.
The Duchess of Sussex's latest Netflix show is going to be released this morning, but will Prince Harry make an appearance? Love these moments of discovery and beauty, so let's be curious together. You know who doesn't like lobster? My husband.
And you're married.
Well, that looks riveting, doesn't it? And in sport this morning, Liverpool beat Newcastle in a pulsating game at St James's Park. Jack Draper is through to the second round of the US Open after being sick on court again. And could it be the worst game they could hope for, or maybe the best? The League at Sheffield Wednesday take on Leeds in the Carabao Cup tonight.
It's turning more changeable this week with rain or heavy showers, but not for everyone. I'll have all the details coming up shortly.
Hello there, it's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Hello, good morning. It's 6 o'clock. On today's show, we report from inside the hidden Ukrainian drone factory at the centre of a new arms race with Russia.
Plus, the government says more than 100 migrants who came to the UK on small boats have been detained and will be deported, but it could be weeks before they are sent back to France.
This is Tuesday, the 26th of August. Inside the top-secret Ukrainian drone factory that's helping to fight off the Russian invasion and the plea for more help from the West.
We need more weapons, we need better, we need faster, we need it higher.
Nigel Farage will formally announce a plan this morning, which he says would lead to the mass deportation of hundreds of thousands of migrants. Rising prices for chocolate, butter, eggs drive food price inflation to an 18-month high. We speak to the White House photographer who took this iconic picture of a bullet passing Donald Trump's ear. And then in sport, it was an incredible night of drama, wasn't it? As Newcastle and Liverpool went head-to-head in the Monday Night Football. All of those details still to come. Hello, good morning, everyone. Great to have you.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Keith Yu. At this hour, the leaders of the US and South Korea eye renewed engagement with the North, with President Donald Trump saying he hopes to meet Kim Jong-un again, possibly this year. More than 750 killed in 2 months of devastating floods in Pakistan. Evacuation orders in place around rivers that are expected to swell in the next 48 hours. And international outrage grows after Israeli airstrikes on Gaza's Nasser hospital kill at least 20, including 5 journalists. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls it a tragic mishap. September 9, ABC TV.
Today, former New South Wales policeman Bo Lamar Condon pleads not guilty to the murders of Jesse Baird and Luke Davies. Demands for accountability after double Israeli strikes on a Gaza hospital kill at least 20 people, including 5 journalists.
It is no coincidence that we're seeing an increase in these attacks, as we are seeing an increase in incursion from Israel.
A former Pentagon official calls for more concrete commitments from Australia on how it'll use the AUKUS nuclear-powered submarines in a time of war. And Australia Post suspends package deliveries to the US in response to Donald Trump's tariffs. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ros Childs. Former New South Wales police officer Bolamar Condon has pleaded not guilty to murdering Sydney couple Jessie Baird and Luke Davies. The 30-year-old has been in custody since last February when he was arrested after attending a Bondi police station following the pair's disappearance. They were allegedly shot with a police-issued handgun in Mr. Baird's home in the city's east before their bodies were found the following week in surf bags in Bungonia, about 200 kilometres south of Sydney. Mr. Lamar Condon's lawyer entered a not guilty plea to all charges, including 2 counts of domestic violence-related murder and 1 of aggravated break and enter. The pleas follow repeated delays in the case over the last 18 months. The case has been committed for trial in the New South Wales Supreme Court, where there'll be an arraignment in early October. Stay with us, we'll be speaking to our court reporter for more on this soon. The United Nations says it wants an urgent, independent investigation into the latest killings of Palestinians in Gaza. Israel launched a strike on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis and then hit the facility again as journalists and rescue workers rushed to the scene, killing at least 20 people, including 5 journalists. And a
Africa News. The news.
As millions of children in Ethiopia remain out of school, the Amhara region has launched a massive registration campaign. The Regional State Education Bureau says it plans to enroll almost 7.5 million students in the 2025-2026 academic year. It's allocated a large budget to train over 10,000 teachers and school leaders, while others have also received training through the Ministry of Education. United Nations data shows that 4.5 million children in Amhara did not attend school last year, the highest number in Ethiopia. Over the past 2 years, armed conflict and insecurity have prevented millions of students from returning to classrooms. Officials say the impact of climate change, including floods and droughts, have also severely challenged the region's education system. Research has shown that out-of-school children are vulnerable to involuntary labour, substance abuse and depression. In the case of girls, the negative impact includes being forced into arranged marriages and early pregnancy. Amhara's registration campaign got underway on Monday and will run until the 5th of September, with classes set to resume on the 16th.
An Israeli airstrike has killed 4 journalists in Gaza. The strike hit the area of Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis on Monday. Among the dead is visual journalist Mariam Jakar, a 33-year-old freelancer for the Associated Press and other outlets. Al Jazeera and Reuters also confirmed their contractors were among the casualties. Health officials report 19 people were killed in total. The Israeli military says it struck the vicinity of the hospital and will investigate, adding it does not target journalists specifically. This conflict is one of the deadliest for journalists on record, with at least 192 media workers killed in Gaza, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. Reporting from the Strip is done almost exclusively by Palestinian journalists who face immense peril and are now being silenced.
International Press Freedom Organization Reporters Without Borders has strongly condemned Israel's latest killing of journalists in Gaza. There's been global outrage at the attack on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis on Monday, during which the 5 Palestinian media workers died. The organization says they were deliberately targeted.
First, we need to evacuate Palestinian journalists that are requiring evacuation. Second, we need to enable the opening of the Gaza Strip to the international press. And Benjamin Netanyahu has kind of explained that he would be willing to open up more. And third, we need to end the impunity cycle of crimes committed against Palestinian journalists.
In total, 20 people were killed in the double-tap strike, which is fatal for journalists to rush to the scene of the first one, only to be killed by the second. The protection of journalists is guaranteed by international law, including during a time of war.
So 200 journalists have been killed since the beginning of the conflict, and about 40 of them have been targeted according to the information collected by RSF. Where is it going to end? Where do we put the limits? Why is the international community so absent Why is the movement of support toward Palestinian journalists still burgeoning within the media community? I think we need to hear stronger voices to hold Israel accountable. The Israel Defense Forces are deliberately targeting journalists.
RSF has called for an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting to halt the killings. Israel has barred international media from covering the war. The journalists who died on Monday worked for several news media, including Reuters, Associated Press and Al Jazeera. Israel says it deeply regrets what it described as a tragic mishap and that military authorities are conducting an investigation.
Over the weekend, crowds gathered in Caracas to register for the militia forces, part of President Nicolas Maduro's effort to boost civilian participation in national security. Defense officials say the mobilization is voluntary and will include training in logistics, resource management, and civil defense. As Venezuelan, everyone has a duty. We have to be prepared for the comprehensive defense of the country. We workers reaffirm our support for the homeland. The move comes as U.S. Navy ships are expected to approach Venezuelan waters in what Washington calls anti-drug operations. Caracas, however, denounces the maneuver as hostile. The U.S. mobilizes military forces from regions far from Venezuela. At the time, it launches psychological warfare through media, social networks, and fake news. It also incites terrorist groups that have already been crushed by our country. These forces have never succeeded. They never will. On Saturday, crowds gathered in Caracas to sign up for the militia forces, which form part of Venezuela's broader defense system. Venezuelan officials say the campaign shows the nation's resolve to resist outside pressure and defend its sovereignty.
Africa News. Stay connected to Africa.
Tonight, the wildfire emergency as summer heat puts firefighters to the test across the globe. More than 1,200 firefighters battling wildfires in Oregon from the ground and from the air, already charring nearly 22,000 acres. Powerful winds and dangerous heat stoking fires in Napa Valley. Firefighters were dropped off by choppers in remote areas. Plus, the dust storms over the weekend that kicked up winds of 50 miles per hour, threatening the Burning Man Festival and the fight overseas with record wildfires in Europe. A helicopter losing control while trying to pick up water. Everyone on board somehow surviving. The intense Israeli airstrikes on a Gaza hospital, the chaos, and then a second blast exploding as first responders rushed to the scene. 5 journalists killed. The question tonight, how could Israel mistakenly strike a hospital twice? President Trump creating specialized National Guard units and now suggesting he may target Chicago next on his federal crackdown on crime, calling the city a killing field. Illinois' governor telling the president to stay out of his state. The massive home explosion in Missouri that people said felt like an earthquake. A neighbor's home also exploding. What police think happened. The neighborhood on edge as an out-of-control hot air balloon is forced to make an emergency landing. How people on the ground help save lives. Will President Trump get his face on Mount Rushmore? Or Ryan Nobles in South Dakota to find out what he learned about the masterpiece and if the National Memorial is about to get a facelift. This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas. And good evening. As we come on the air here, crews are battling wildfires across the West and the globe. Intense winds, low humidity, and dangerous heat for millions are creating the perfect conditions as 50 large fires burn. In central Oregon, the flat fire leveling houses and prompting evacuations, burning nearly 22,000 acres.
Now the Guard troops patrolling Washington are armed, and the president considers next sending troops to Chicago.
It's a killing field right now.
But the governor answers back. Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois.
I'm John Dickerson.
More than 2,000 National Guard troops are patrolling the streets of Washington, and now some of them are armed.
President Trump ordered them in to help clean up crime, though they've also been cleaning up trash as well. The president today said the deployment has been a success. We found some issues with the stats he cited.
And now Mr. Trump is talking about sending National Guard troops to fight crime in other cities. At least 2 governors, though, are telling him, please don't. Nancy Cordes is at the White House for us tonight. Nancy?
Maurice, President Trump says he is weighing whether to send the Guard into Baltimore and Chicago. He says he may do it, he may not. One thing he has done via his defense secretary is to authorize Guard members here in D.C. to begin carrying their service weapons. The Pentagon says those weapons will only be used as a last resort.
CBS News captured this video last night of National Guard troops now armed with rifles and revolvers on patrol near downtown D.C. The number of Guard members deployed to the nation's capital has grown to nearly 2,300 from half a dozen states, to the dismay of D.C.'s mayor.
I don't believe that troops should be policing American cities.
But President Trump insisted today the operation has transformed D.C. and discouraged violent crime.
So for 11 days, there have been no murders. The record goes back years where that's happened.
It actually just happened in March of this year. Nevertheless, Trump said he may send the Guard to Baltimore and Chicago next.
Chicago's a killing field right now, and they don't acknowledge it.
Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker pushed back from Chicago.
Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here.
Murders in Chicago have dropped 50% since 2021, but auto thefts have nearly doubled. It's a similar story in Baltimore, where murders are at their lowest levels in 50 years. Maryland Governor Wes Moore argued the Guard isn't designed to fight crime.
It's not scalable. You're not going to be able to do this in every single major American city, particularly when many of the cities that have the highest crime rates are the places that have actually deployed their National Guards to Washington, D.C.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli airstrikes on Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza have killed at least 20 people, including 5 Palestinian journalists. According to eyewitnesses, Israel carried out a double-tap strike on the hospital. A drone initially hit the hospital's roof, killing one journalist setting up a live stream. Then another strike hit journalists and rescue workers who were responding to the initial strike. During a live broadcast, Al Ghad TV filmed the second strike on the hospital.
Just now, the civil service is lost. Oh God, they've killed these people.
The journalists killed in the Israeli strike had been identified as Hassam al-Masri, a photojournalist with Reuters news agency, Mohammed Salama, a photojournalist with Al Jazeera, Mariam Abu Daka, a freelancer working with the Associated Press, Moaz Abu Taha, a journalist with NBC, and Ahmed Abu Aziz. On Saturday, another journalist was killed in Gaza, Mohammed Al-Madoun, who worked at Palestine TV. At least 244 journalists have now been killed in Gaza over the past 23 months. Today's attack on Nasser Hospital came a day after Israeli forces killed at least...
Good evening, I'm Amna Nabaz. 10 minutes away. On the NewsHour tonight, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is arrested by immigration authorities again after he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador and then returned to the United States. The unique history of how Washington, D.C. has been governed as now armed National Guard troops patrol the streets of the Capitol. And we speak with a Democratic congressman who plans to retire if courts uphold Republicans' gerrymandering of Texas districts.
This is much bigger than Texas, and it's certainly much bigger than the individual future of any elected official. This is really about what happens to our democracy.
Now on YouTube.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.